This whole alcohol thing is society based, right? A carcinogen that causes organ failure, that ruins lives. When you say, I stopped doing heroin, people are like, thank God. If you said I stopped drinking, people are like, what's wrong with you? Society telling us that we shouldn't be talking about these things that lead us to drink. That was the only time like that I felt calm. Removing alcohol, tenfold back. Removing toxic people, tenfold back. Removing yourself from toxic situations. Promised myself I'd never do it again. And wouldn't you know it, the next day at noon, I was standing outside my bar. I literally heard a voice, like it was the voice of God. It was like, dude, you are done. And I'm like, I know. After a while, I looked at like pictures of myself and I looked at like what I was doing. And I was like, dude, you're a loser.
I hope I can help somebody that's going through the same thing. It's a terrible place to be. I don't wish this on my worst enemy.
Oh, carry the hurt when it gets too hard. Pick it up, dust it off, and I fall down 11, I get up 12.
All right, guys, I have John here today, and he's been sober almost 2 years, and we are going to take a look at his story. All right, John, so we were just talking briefly about the universe sending us strangers to support us versus family. So take me back to your when you got sober and why you got sober, and we'll get into
Yeah,
the
I mean,
nitty
listen,
gritty of it.
the list of whys, has kind of grown. I didn't even realize I had so many whys when I did get sober, right? But my story, like the day I got sober, I tell it to everybody, but I had a business deal go wrong. I was trying to sell my business. I was operating like a multi-million dollar agency, completely blacked out.
You're an
And
insurance agent, right?
yeah, that's correct. Yeah, I had a massive insurance agency, and I was operating. It was a pretty self-sufficient. Like I had really great staff, and but like most days, it was morning, noon, and night. I was a very functional, which is I personally think is kind of almost the worst type of alcoholic is like a very functional one because people could look like on paper, right? You have the cars, you have the watches, you have the wife, the kids, the house, and the locations people want, right? Like I have a beautiful house like right next to New York City, like on the Hudson River. And on paper you look like you have everything. So if you start complaining like no, like I have problems in my life, people don't want to hear it, right?
Yeah.
Or they say like, oh, it's obviously not that bad if you can do all of this, right? And then that's why I always say like a functional alcoholic's probably the worst kind because people don't necessarily believe that things are as bad as they are, right? But they're not walking in your shoes. So I had a business deal go bad, and it wasn't like I say it went bad, but it wasn't like that big of a deal. I thought like the deal was going to be consolidated. It was not. The meeting happened to be at the bar. So I wound up just sitting there at the bar after the guy that was supposed to buy the business left. And I drank old fashions until I couldn't drink old fashions anymore. Um, it just happened to be Valentine's Day,
Oh.
and I happened to have dinner plans that night. And
Uh-oh.
yeah, the phone call went out like, "Hey, I'm not making it to dinner.
So
I'm in a cab on my way home."
so people are watching this. He is married and has 2 kids.
Yeah,
So I
yeah,
assume that went down really well with your wife.
yeah, 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 100%. Yeah, like a lead balloon. So I arguably the best person in the world though. Like I got home and instead of like she like put the kids in the neighbor's house and like instead of coming home to a firestorm, I came home to like a warm meal and sympathy. Um, which is the scariest thing to come home to because she was done. Like that was it. You know what I mean?
Right.
And after, so many years together, like I knew that was the case. Um that to me was like that was the final straw. Listen, I had 1,000 day ones before that, right? So I promised myself that day that I would never go back. I laid in bed. I felt like the weight of the world on my shoulders. I cried, for hours. I was sick as a dog. Um, I promised myself I'd never do it again. And wouldn't you know it, the next day at noon, I was standing outside my bar the next day.
Oh.
Like, and I like woke up outside the bar. Like, I didn't remember necessarily walking there. I don't necessarily remember like making the decision to go drink again. So I stood outside the bar and I had a picture of my daughter on my phone and I looked at my phone, I looked at the bar and I said, all right, just take a lap around the block. And the bar is open. So like if but just take a breather. So I took a lap around the block. I came back, I stood outside the bar. And I took a look at my phone at the picture of my daughter again, and I said, take another lap. So I took 17 laps that day. I did that
Wow.
process 17 times, and then finally on the 17th time, I said, we're not going in. We're done. And I walked home. Got sick, the sickest I've been for a very, 72 hours or so.
So you
Um,
detoxed.
Detox. Yeah,
Wow.
like
So your level was you were, I guess
oh,
we call that a functioning alcoholic.
I mean, I was
Yeah.
drinking for breakfast. Like I would have White Claws for breakfast and
Oh,
yeah, like, get the kids on the bus and then, crack a White Claw, open up my laptop. It was just part of the day, right? Um, the craziest part is though, and I was always I grew up like Roman Catholic, like Irish Catholic. Kind of lost a bit of the spirituality, as I kind of went along in my life. But that day that I was laying face down in bed, like I literally heard a voice, like, and people have said it, like, and I'll just it was the voice of God. It has to be,
yeah.
or a higher power, whichever one you believe in, right? And it was like, dude, you are done. And I'm like, I know, like I'm surrendering. You know what I mean? Like I am hopeless against this thing, and I need help. So that was it. That was my last day, and that was the straw that broke the camel's back, so to
So
speak. And
so Valentine's Day was the last day you were drunk?
yep.
Wow, that's a cool, like
Yeah, it's a good memento, right? Because even
yeah.
like last year, we were like, what should we do for Valentine's Day? And like we're not like very like we probably could be better to ourselves than we are, but like we pour a lot of time into the kids and what
Oh,
have
yeah,
you,
for
right?
sure.
But my wife was like, why don't we celebrate the 15th instead? That's your day one.
Yeah.
So like that's our new tradition is like, we went out to like a really nice dinner on the 15th, and obviously we had all the reservations we could get because everything else was empty from the day before, right?
Yeah.
So our new like Valentine's Day is the 15th, which is pretty cool.
Oh, I love it. So you were looking at your daughter. It's so funny because my husband quit because of my daughter also.
Mhm.
And I'm not saying, but I feel like being daddy's little girls, I feel like they tug on your heart a little bit more. And you said that you kept looking at her picture and doing another lap. I mean, she probably noticed that daddy wasn't present as much as he could because I'm assuming your relationship is much better with your children now.
100%. It's like I used to, it's almost embarrassing, but like it's the truth, right? Like bedtime was the fastest bedtime you've ever seen in your entire life. It was like brush teeth, we're saying prayers, everybody's in bed. Like it was a 30-second bedtime process because like that, started my night, right? Like now my daddy duties are over and I could go sit on the couch and watch football or throw on Goodfellas for the 15th time this week. I didn't realize it, but a lot of alcoholics just watch the same like 2, 3 movies like every night over and over again. Goodfellas was my go-to. Wolf of Wall Street was also another one of them.
Oh, yeah.
Um, but yeah, so the relationship has been like 10 times better. Thankfully, like this, she was 5 when I finished when I got sober. So my my hope is that there's probably not too many memories that'll last of her ever remembering me even as a drinker.
Mhm.
Um because I grew up with my dad died of liver cirrhosis from
Oh,
from alcohol, and I mean, we'd need 5 more podcasts to dive into what that looks like, right? But like I just kept thinking about how much it hurt me as it like, and I was grown, you know what I mean? Like I was an adult male. He
how
was
old
an
were
old
you?
man. I was 28 when he passed, 29. Um, but a lifetime of trying to build a relationship with my dad that like it came and went. It was good and bad or what have you, right? But I just couldn't imagine them going through that, and because of me.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I'm like, why would you do that to them? They don't deserve this. They didn't ask for this. Like how how much it hurts.
Yeah.
It's very painful.
Yeah.
It's
I
very very painful.
I know that we were talking a little bit before the podcast, but it's very sad when it's the generations before us, like, a lot of them have passed away because of alcohol or broken relationships because of alcohol, but then you see the generations continue doing it, but you're the one generation that has to break that cycle
Yeah. Yeah,
because
100%. Somebody has to, right? Like somebody has to. And I went and visited one of my buddies, a kid I grew up with, my best friend. We met in first grade. We sat next to each other.
Oh,
And he was a partner in the agency with me. We're still partners in another business together now. But I hadn't seen him in a minute, and I went out and saw him, and like he's a brolic, tatted up football playing like animal, and he took one look at me and he just started crying. He's like, dude, like, you have any idea how strong it is, like that you did this? Like, you changed the trajectory of your bloodline. Like,
wow.
and right there, I was like, man, that like, it takes like sometimes it takes somebody else to say it for it to
Yeah.
hit, and that meant a lot to me hearing that from him.
Like, give me goosebumps. Like, that's like your one of your best friends said that to you. And, that goes to we rarely have supporters in our corner from our circle. It's usually outside of our circle, strangers.
100%.
And he literally said this to you. So it had to be like, holy crap.
Yeah, like we were talking before the podcast started, but like, it's so wild, right? The dynamic that changes once you do get sober with anyone that was like a drinking partner, a drinking friend, family member, coworker, what have you. Like, all of a sudden, like, those relationships, they do change, and like,
Yeah.
I think getting sober, people that are thinking about getting sober, like they really should realize that and prepare as best they can. Even though I don't know if I have tips other than you have to let people go through their process too, right?
Mhm.
Because when you get sober, it's like holding up a mirror to somebody, and all of a sudden, your problem that's no longer there, it's like almost like I feel like it magnifies
Yeah.
what they have going on internally, whether it's drugs, alcohol, or some other issue going on,
Mhm.
right? So a lot of people are affected by your sobriety, whether that is good, and a good effect, right? I met you, right?
Yeah.
All the podcasts that I've done, all the friends that I've made, right? The circle I hang out with now. But I lost a ton from my former circle.
But were these people like your ride or dies? Obviously not.
You know, looking back on it now, they aren't now, but they might have been then. But like, are you really a ride or die if a major win, something positive? If I said like, oh, I picked up a heroin, you know, thing, and they said, oh, like, we're done with you, that makes sense. But if you're like, hey, I like, became spiritual and like got sober and like I lost 80 pounds and I started a men's group, and all of a sudden they're like, nah, we don't really want nothing to do with you anymore.
Right? It's
It's like,
amazing how
really?
that happens.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, really.
Yeah.
Like, but like the beautiful thing of it is who does come out of the woodwork, right? Like, all of a sudden, like, you have these new people and you're like,
Mhm.
who sent me this guy? Like, this guy's
Right?
great. Like, like or uh how blessed am I to have the ability to speak on this and influence other
Yeah.
people, right? So there's a ton more positive that
I
comes
feel
along
like
with it than negative.
we have to get sober out loud or it's not gonna be successful. In
I love
most
that.
cases,
I
like
love that, right? Because I grew up in a world, in a house where, you don't talk, like, men don't talk about pain, and men don't talk about feelings, and men, you know what I mean? Like, you suffer in silence and you do what you got to do for the family, and no one really cares how you're feeling, whether you're sick or tired or whatever.
oh,
Like, you get
I feel like you and my husband could have a whole podcast on this. He literally says the exact same thing. Like,
yeah.
men can we touch on that? Like, maybe
Yeah.
maybe men are more labeled as alcoholics than females because, well, according to books and things that I've been reading, women actually have more of a problem now than men, but that's a whole different topic. But men, yeah, they don't talk about their feelings. Women are open books, and you
Right.
guys have so much weight on your shoulders. And I know I get some hate for controversial stuff when I say this, but men do carry the household,
Yeah,
and you
100%,
have
and you shouldn't get hate for that. It's the truth. You know what I mean? Like, it's
yeah,
as the men in the household go, the house goes.
yeah,
Straight up. You know what I mean?
yeah,
And I do think it's that lack of ability or the society telling us that we shouldn't be talking about these things that lead us to drink, because I know myself, like, that was the only time like that I felt calm. Like, the rest of the day, I felt like my hair was on fire. Um, you know what I mean? And I do think that women these days probably do, because like, you have all like the, mommy wine thing, you know what I mean?
mommy
Mommy's
wine
wine,
culture.
Right, yeah, like mommy juice, and it's like, no,
Yeah.
all you're doing is just drinking in front of your kids. Like, it's not
I have a
mommy juice.
tumbler. Literally, I went to a when we moved to Idaho, we were going to the Oregon coast every fall and got all of our friends together, and I made 3 of us tumblers that said "Mama Juice" on it.
Mama juice, right? Yeah, because it's like it's cool, right? Because you could
Yeah,
walk around in your Lululemon with your tumbler, and nobody cares, right? Like,
right.
it makes it fun. That's the fun part. It's not like the part like where you're falling over curbs, or you're starting an argument with the husband, for literally no reason at the end of the
Right?
night, right? Like, and so but yeah, it's like, people come out of the woodwork, and I think it does have to do with society. Look, this whole alcohol thing is society based, right? it's
Mhm.
it's a what it is like a carcinogen that causes organ failure, that ruins lives, most relationships, and everybody it touches. And it's so well marketed, right? That, like, it's, when you say, I stopped doing heroin, people are like, thank God. If you said, I stopped drinking, people are like, what's wrong with you?
God, so stupid.
And it's wild.
Yeah.
It's wild. And I was born in Ireland. I grew up in a thick drinking Irish house, and, like, that was just part of society for me. Like, it was part of my culture. It was part of, like, my upbringing. And then, like, I became an athlete, right? And, like, athletes and, like, football play, like, we go to football parties and we drink. And then, like, college was like, who's the biggest drinker? It became part of my identity. It was who I was. Like,
Yeah.
if there was a party, you can call me. I'm there. You
Yeah.
know,
It's that Irish bloodline.
that's what it is. Now, like, if it's after 7 p.m., it's an automatic no. If it's cold out, it's an automatic no. I'm not coming. You know what I mean? Like, if it's like I got all these boundaries, and it's like, it's a whole different ball game. But if you would ask me 5 years ago, like, hey, do you want to wake up at 4 a.m. and crack Bud Lights outside on, like, a field of ice? I'd be like, sign me up. I'm there. You know,
Yeah,
it's just wild the way priorities change, for sure.
it definitely is, and boundaries are hard. So, your dad passed away of liver failure. Is your mom still around?
She never drank.
Oh.
She wasn't a drinker. Like, I wouldn't say she never drank. Like, if I saw her drink a Malibu Bay Breeze, and then I gotta, like, help walk her to the car. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That kind, So it was never her thing. Yeah, but my mom was around, like, they had, like, a very ridiculous relationship. It was, they loved each other. They couldn't stand each other. Like,
That generation, I think.
100%, but when my dad got sick, like, he was out of the house, he was living in the same neighborhood, like, one of those divorces, where, like, he's over for lunch
Oh,
every day. But when he got sick, my mom brought him back into the house. She was like,
okay.
look, I'm not going to let him, pass. Right. So a lot of things, like, happened that, once again, this is an hour and a half, 2 hour worth of a podcast. But um, when he got sick, we brought him to all the best doctors in New York City. And finally, they gave him 6 months to live at first. And we brought him to all these doctors, and they were like, look, I don't know what's going on, but the guy's strong as a horse. Like, I think his liver is actually going to make a rebound if we keep him on this diet and on these meds. Um, he he heard that, because I pulled the doctor out in the hallway. I was like, do me a favor and don't say this in front of him, because I knew, but he heard it in the hallway. And I came home from work 2 days later, and he was hammered, because he heard that he was gonna, make a comeback.
Is it isn't it so messed up? Like, I just was talking to somebody about this the other day. My grandpa was literally on hospice, and he quit drinking years prior, and this old guy about the same age would come into my work. He was hammered every single day and wished that he would die because his family didn't wanna be around him, and I'm like, "How twisted is this? This drunk who wants to die, but yet, like, my grandpa is literally dying," and, like, it
Yeah,
just seems so unfair.
it is. It is. It's incredibly unfair. It's wildly unfair. Um, but it's a big lesson, right? And, like, when he was in hospice, so anyway, he moved down to Florida after a while. And we got a phone call from the hospital system down there, and they're like, look, we have your dad, he's not doing well. I think you should hop on a plane. I said, listen, I've been on this call a dozen and a half times with him. I'm like, he's gonna rebound. He always does. They're like, it it's not gonna rebound. Like he's got days. So I said, all right. So I talked to my mom. We hopped on a plane. We were down there. The craziest part is he's in hospice, and I'm sitting at the end of his bed, and I have a 30 pack between my legs, and I'm just drinking in in hospice, watching him die
Oh my
of liver failure.
gosh.
Like you want to talk about a disease that
Yeah.
knows no bounds. You know what I mean? And like because I that was the way I medicated, right? And
Yeah.
it's very much a won't be me kind of disease, right? It's never going to be me,
Never.
never. And so there I was. Now this is 10 years ago. So I had a lot of growing up to do still from that point.
Wow. That and it's funny because and not funny, but it's just like we celebrate alcoholics at their funeral by drinking beer. We celebrate
Yeah.
them by
Yes.
them dying with alcohol.
A
It's so
hundred
messed
percent.
up.
It's so funny. Even when I was drinking, like the last year or so, my dad died on March 30th. And on March
Oh
30th, I would
goodness.
just go to I would take the day off and just go to the pub, and cheers him. And it's like, what are you doing? Like, you know what I mean? Like, do you like,
Yeah.
he killed himself with alcohol.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I know somebody, close to me that, committed by gunshot. Like, we don't go to the gun range on his
No.
anniversary, right? To celebrate his life, like that would be ludicrous. But why do we go to the bar to celebrate my dad's life, who passed away from liver failure because he couldn't put the drink down? This disease does unreal things. Like I know, like I'm sure you've gone down the rabbit hole of like, why they call it a spirit and like how it really is supposed to take like the spirituality out of you, right? And it does. After a while, like you don't think there's a higher power. Like your higher power is the booze.
Yeah.
And if it gets you in that headlock, you know, it's going to be a very hard time getting out of it, right? Once you're
It's
at that
definitely the
stage.
devil's juice. It's not mama's juice.
No, without a doubt, without a doubt. And I truly believe that too, right? I'm like, I can go down a lot of rabbit holes, but like, I think, alcohol is promoted because it does create a very manageable class of people. Like
But
it's
sorry to interrupt you.
no,
So we celebrate people by drinking when they die of alcohol, but yet we demonize the gun. We never demonize the alcohol.
right, right. And
And
I
I get
think
hate for that. So, but whatever.
I
It's true. Like,
who hates for that? That's truth.
right?
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's the truth, right? Like and I think people that's the problem with this is that it's so prevalent. And a lot of people are in denial about their usage of it, their
Yep.
reliance on it, that when you say things that make them uncomfortable, they're going to attack you for it,
Yeah.
right? Like just because
Like
you had a
we
problem doesn't mean I have a problem, right? And it's like, no, you do, you just don't want to hear it.
exactly. And then when you confront them, they like get so pissed off at you and say terrible things. But yeah, like people will be drinking and driving, kill somebody. I literally we were just watching a cop show on YouTube, and she was a famous YouTuber, and her dad did tons of videos together, and a drunk driver killed her dad as the dog, like the whole family was in the car, and the dad and the dog died, and but they let the guy walk away. Eventually he got in trouble, but you don't hear them saying we should, do alcohol control.
Right.
All
Right.
these like drinking and driving fatalities, but yet there's no alcohol control.
100%. It's terrible. It really is. And it's so like I don't, I AA didn't work for me. I'm glad it's there. I think it's an amazing tool. Like I'm not an AA like naysayer. It just that wasn't my thing.
Right.
But like they make it seem like you're just like this like church basement dweller that
Label.
like yeah, and it's like it's much more to it than that, right? It's finding yourself. It's finding who you are. Like I feel like a kid again. Like my interests like have come back. Like my only interest in adulthood was drinking.
Yeah.
I built everything around it, like where I went to school, like the things the clubs that I joined, like the job, right? I'm in sales. I've been in sales my whole life. Like sales was just another extrapolation of like, being an athlete. And if you're not partying with the crew in sales and waking up the next day and going to work and, like, then you're not part of the in crew, right? Like you're not cool anymore.
Right.
Right. So it's like becomes your identity. And I had no other interest like as an adult other than partying.
Yeah, same. So you touched, I guess we haven't asked about like how you got sober. So
So yeah,
you
it's a
said it
great question. Yeah. Yeah.
you said AA
So
didn't work for you.
AA wasn't my thing. I don't like most alcoholics. I think I had 150, 200 day ones before the one that like stuck, like, my rock bottom. Right.
Right.
Um, so I tried AA quite a few times, but what really worked for me, the craziest part is like, was finding people that I'll take a step back. When I was in AA one time, a guy, I think a classic AA line, but a guy like told me, he goes, I have what you want. And, he meant sobriety, but like, but I was wearing a Rolex. I had the house. I was in a nice suit. He didn't have any teeth. So I was like, you don't have what I want. And that's not like, I didn't want to emulate him. And I'm not taking anything away from him. He was sober.
No,
I wanted to be sober.
right, but
You know what I mean?
and I think that's why AA sometimes is intimidating to some people because it's a stereotypical drunk.
Right. It's what you see kind of on TV, right?
Yes.
Like, and it's like they got these, it's like a club. They got these like phrases that they use, and it's a thing, right? And then once again, if it works for you, I am not
Yeah.
saying anything negative about AA. I think it's great. It just doesn't work for me. So I wanted to be around that line. I have what you want. I'm like, okay, where are those guys? Right. So I wound up using social media. I found accounts on Instagram of people that were sober, and had what I wanted. The main guy was this guy Eric Spofford. He's an entrepreneur based out of Miami. Sold his company for $115 million. Like,
Uh,
he's my age. He had the yacht and he's got the Lambos and he's got all the fun stuff. And he, preaches sobriety as the tool that got him where he is. That's what I wanted. Right. So I wound up like diving into his circle and all of the things that made him successful, which was like discipline, regimented gym time. Like every day you're waking up earlier than everybody else. You're going to the gym. You're reading something positive, right? Like,
yes.
like you could see behind me, like, you know, this is
Love it.
just from this year. Like I never stopped reading like self-help books and, like anything that will like feed my mind, right? So I was like, okay, like let me get involved with this guy's circle. So I started following people that he followed. And all of a sudden I realized like there was a lot of people out there that were sober and achieving amazing things. Um, Social media, um, getting involved in that circle, right? Changing the people around you, right? There's a line that I say all the time, but you can't change the people around you, but you can
Yes.
change the people around you, right?
Yeah.
So I started going down to his events in Miami. And you're talking about 30 hard charging entrepreneurs, men, women, what have you, not a drop of alcohol on the yacht, not a drop of alcohol in the party, not a drop of alcohol in the after party, right? Everybody was just high on life, trading entrepreneurial secrets, business, working out. Everybody's in great shape, right? So I was like, okay, so that's the other thing. Now I am I'm the fattest I ever was, right? I was 268 pounds, like eating the most unhealthy foods on the planet. So like, okay, like let's tweak that, right? So like now I'm in the gym. Now I'm taking down a gallon of water. Now have you heard of 75 hard?
I did 75 hard. That's what helped me quit.
Yep, there you go. So now I learn about 75 hard. Okay, so now I have these guys that are crushing it like, financially in the business world, which I love. 75 hard gives me the playbook on
Mhm.
how to run my
Playbook.
day, right? Like now I have a playbook. Um And then so my number one tip to everybody that's like looking for a place to start is scheduling. I used a calendar and scheduling. And I scheduled like my alarm goes off at 4:30. You don't have to get up at 4:30, but it works for me. My alarm goes off at 4:30. I do not say no to myself. So no snooze button. Like if you tell yourself you're going to do something, you do it. 4:30 wake up and I had 4:30 till 9:30 in my calendar every minute scheduled because I knew if I was left to my own accord, I would just fall back to bad habits,
Yeah.
right? But if I had every single minute scheduled, I had no thought process. It was time to work out, time to hit this. Here's my meeting. Here's my, and I would fill it in like, hey, can I call you? I got a good buddy, Jesse. He's the one that gave me my sobriety coin. But I was like, can I call you at 1 o'clock? Because I had 1 to 1:30 open. So like fill it in with like a good conversation with somebody you like,
Yep.
right? Like, and so scheduling actually was a major part of
I
being sober.
I love that because I don't think I've heard of like affirmations, sticking them around. Even my counselor just last night was like, do a task list, put sticky tags everywhere to like get your tasks done. But like I love that you schedule.
Yeah.
That's I might have to like steal this for reference.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, like the schedule was huge for me. Right. And then, so like now you're working out, right? So like you feel good, you're eating good food, you're reading good things, you're following positive people. It's like all that's life changing. All of
Right.
that, right, is life changing.
Yeah.
It's what you're ingesting mentally, right? What you read, the podcasts that you listen to, the books, right? The speakers that you pay to go see, the rooms that you try to get into, and then physically, you're working out, you feel great. The food you're ingesting, it makes you feel amazing. Now you're losing weight. Now you have momentum. All of that, like that heavy lifting up front, causes momentum, and some momentum's hard to stop.
Right.
It is. And then, you can create a very successful, beautiful life.
So I listen to Andy Frisella and Ed Milet probably the most out of any popular podcasts. And I started listening to them before I quit drinking actually, but they just get in your head. Like
Yeah.
those types of podcasts just get in your head and you're like, I can do better for myself. So I started doing better for myself like even before I started 75 Hard. Andy Frisella, I will say, changed my life, but
Yep.
I love his podcast. I love that he has a "F you" attitude. You're a loser if you don't wanna try like, he just calls you out on your bullshit.
Yeah. And I think
And
more people do that, right? Like, and you need to
yeah,
kind of look in the mirror and be like, after a while, I looked at like pictures of myself and I looked at like what I was doing. And I was like, dude, you're a loser, dude.
yeah.
You are like, you're the definition of it.
And
You know? Like,
people don't like that type of criticism, but it's like, I was a loser. All I was doing is just drinking my whole entire life, consumed of alcohol. I was unhealthy. I was overweight. I wasn't putting people first. I was only putting alcohol first. And
yeah.
It's not it's not fair to everybody around you. It's because you're making yourself suffer.
100%. Like, we'd be like, all right, where do you want to go on vacation? And be like, let's get an Airbnb. And I'd literally be yelping bars like around
Yeah,
the Airbnb and be like, "No, we're not staying there," And you'd be like, "Why not?" Be like, "No, I just don't like the vibe." But in my head, I'm like, I can't get to a sports bar. I couldn't get to, you know what I mean? Like I
yeah,
couldn't get, your life really revolves around it. Like, oh, where do you want to go out to dinner? And it's like, you want to go to Friendlies? And I'm like, no, I don't want to go to Friendlies. Why? Because they don't have beer. Like that,
Well,
and
and if you're like me, I didn't wanna take my kids on vacation with me because that was my time. I wanted to drink.
right, right, yeah. Don't get
But
involved. Don't get in my
right?
way.
Right?
You know,
And now I'm
like
like,
it's
"Oh, we can go on family vacations." Like, I've talked to one of my really good friends who also doesn't drink. I'm like, "Let's take the kids here and here and here." Obviously, we have to figure out times and money and scheduling, but I'm like, "Man, now we can do family vacations and the kids actually fully get to enjoy it. It's not just mommy and daddy going and getting wasted and ruining the vacation because they're drunk and fighting."
100%. 100%.
Ugh,
Like I remember sometimes like we were in a hotel, and like the kids would, my kids go to bed early. Like they go to bed at 8. Like they're young and they're tired. And like we went to one place, this was like one of the last years, and I like the place didn't have a bar. So I left, I went, I got a 12 pack, and I sat in the hotel bathroom watching football on my phone rather than just go to sleep, like, and it was just because like I had to get the fix in. And it's like I'm sitting in the bathroom and I'm looking at myself in the mirror, like, if this isn't low, what is,
yeah.
and believe me, it got worse. It got a lot worse.
So, those first 3 weeks of quitting drinking, um, did you just dive into all those, tasks, like, right away? Or how did you
So
push through those
what I
first
did
few
for the first time in my life, and I think this is probably something people could learn from, is I never gave myself like time off or grace before. I
Mhm.
was always like I wasn't allowed mentally to slack.
Yeah.
And what I did when I realized it was time, and I don't like, if you're hearing this, go to a detox center and just go get medically detox. Like, don't try to do it by yourself. It's very dangerous, and I shouldn't have, and I regret doing it by myself. But I did it by myself, and those like 3 or 4 first days, I was like, dude, you are like, you're either gonna die or like you're gonna get yourself on a straight and narrow. Like, take 4 days off, and I don't think I've ever done that for myself. And I literally like ordered Gatorade, ice cream, candy, and big bottles of Poland Spring water. And I had that all stacked on the bed next to me. I put movies on. I just slept and like drank Gatorade and ate, what was just Hershey bars and like Hershey Kisses, just like because like your sugar is like getting all
Yeah.
wacky, right?
Mhm.
And I took those 4 days and I just like slept and like couldn't move, like got up every once in a while, use the bathroom, and then back to bed. Like I was hurting. And then yeah, then after that, I was like, all right. Then one day I was like, all right, time to get up and shower. And then it was like, let me go to the gym. So like I'd go and walk on a treadmill for 10 minutes. Um, and then like week 2 was like, okay, let's get into it, like try to get into a routine. And then I realized like that's when I started doing the scheduling thing, because I realized like in the blank parts of the schedule was when I started doubting what I was doing, wanting to fall back into old habits, like that kind of thing. So that's when I came up with like my scheduling idea. And then by week 3, I was, waving the sobriety flag, like, you guys don't know what you're missing, like this is
Yeah.
the best thing ever. I'm walking down, like my house is like right by the Hudson River, and I see the New York City skyline is my backyard. It is unbelievably like energetic, right? And I was walking by that skyline like it was the first time I've ever seen it. And I literally said out loud, I started tearing, and I was just like, hallelujah. And I don't know, like I've never said that before in my entire life. I was like, hallelujah. Like I was walking down and people were looking at me, and I was like, thank you, God. Like it
Yeah.
it was like this overwhelming sense of like being saved. It felt like I was saved from drowning.
Yeah.
Like, I can imagine what that feels like if you're out in the middle of the ocean and you're like, "I give up." And all of a sudden the helicopter shows up. Like, that's what it felt like.
That I love that. That's absolutely amazing.
Yeah, it was unbelievable.
So
Most
you
amazing
push
feeling I've
through
ever seen.
so you push through the, like, super shitty parts, and then you got to that, like, "Hallelujah, I am saved, the helicopter came."
Yep. Yep.
Like,
You push through it, right? And you mentioned it. I don't know if it was in the beginning of the podcast, like recording, or when we were talking previously, but like then I realized like, so I had another buddy that's, well, I call him a buddy now, but a stranger that I didn't know that I followed on Instagram decided to get sober like a month or 2 before me. So I followed his journey, and he went into like bodybuilding competitions, and like he's doing so well, and he's like crushing it. Me and him actually, our sons are named the same name, which is a unique name.
really?
Yeah, Maverick. So like, we both have like cool sons with cool names. But like I was following these guys, and then I realized like I have the responsibility and the obligation to speak this,
Mhm.
because A, it's uncomfortable and I do uncomfortable things now. But B, people were bold enough to speak their sobriety out loud,
Yeah.
and it saved me. So I have to do the same. I have to reach out and pull somebody else up on a boat, right? It's an
Right.
obligation.
Yeah. Paying it
So
forward.
100%, right? Because A, I'm not doing it for the karma, but doesn't hurt.
Yeah.
Um, and but B, like, you're saving lives, right? Like you don't even know it. Like I'm sure your DMs are blowing up now, but like my DMs are nonstop with like, just listen to the podcast. Like, that was so intense. Like, that really helped me out. Or like, hey, I heard you say this, never related to something more in my life. You know what I mean? And it's like, that's what we're here for,
Yeah.
you know?
My
And like
following is on YouTube, so I don't know if you've been on my YouTube, but, like,
yep.
all the comments that I get, like, my DMs don't really do anything. I
Sure.
did get a message from somebody and that I actually graduated with, and I'm like, "Dude, you got to come on here, please." Um we were, like, friends, but, like, we had our issues, but she's like, "You don't understand who's lurking in the background and whose
Mhm.
life you're changing." And she wrote me, like, messages that were like sorry, I can't see
Oh,
in the camera. And I'm like, "That, like, makes me so happy because you don't know whose life you're changing because not everybody's gonna speak out about it."
100%. And it's crazy, like, even the people that have reached out, like, a lot of guys from, like, my hometown, like, "Hey, dude," like, guys I played football with or guys, like, that I went to college with and partied with. They're like, "Dude, I, just came across, like, your Instagram, man. Like, can you tell me more about that?" And it's like, "Yeah, like, let's talk." And all of a sudden, like, now they're on their journey, right?
Yeah,
Or they'll reach out and be like, dude, I had 90 days slipped up. And it's like, don't worry about it. Like, that's okay. Now like you don't have to worry about the days. After a while,
mhm.
they stop, it doesn't matter anymore. It's cool to to get to a certain point, I think, right? Like,
Oh, yeah.
like I was counting days in the beginning and then it turned to months. And now like I'll count in years, right?
Right.
And then hopefully, God willing, I'll count in decades.
Yeah,
Um, but like, those guys are coming out of the woodwork now. Like, dude, I could use some of what you got,
yeah,
and I'm like, let's do it. Let's chat. And I'm always open, to anybody listening. Hit the DMs. You know what I mean? Like
yeah.
I answer all of them, and I'm more than happy, to help.
And we'll put your, Instagram in the description so people can reach out to you. I
Sure,
feel
sure.
like I love that you said, like, in the beginning, you counted days because I feel like a lot of us get through that first year just counting the days, and then what I notice is you start counting months. As soon as I got to, like, 6 months, I was like, 6 months, 7 months, but it was, like, getting to that 180-day mark, and I was like,
Mhm.
"Okay, that's when my brain starts shifting," apparently, is what my doctor told me. Um But then it's like you get to your year and then you got through all those firsts that you were so hardly focused on, and then the second year comes and you're like, "Oh, well, now here comes the real work."
Yes. Yeah. Now you got to figure out why.
Yeah,
Now you got to attack the underlying, because like at first it's just survival, right? Like what things can
right?
I put in to like make sure I don't do this anymore? And
Yeah,
then after a while, you're like, all right, now we have to do the actual work, which is why are we doing this in the first place?
yeah,
That's when it starts getting dark or deep,
it does.
right? Like that's
And
when you're like
hard.
tough.
Yeah,
That's like, you're shoveling at that point, right? And a lot of it was like my relationship with my dad, right? Like
mhm,
that was a major thing for me. Relationships with family members, relationship with friends, um, you know, striving to be something. I suffer massively from imposter syndrome. I'm like, why me? Who am I? You know what I mean?
right?
Like like what do I do that's like even remotely special, or why would anybody listen to my shit? Like,
Yeah, I'm
you
the
know,
same.
yeah, it's
I
tough.
was I was just talking to my husband about this. My counselor has been, like, pushing me to, like, push real estate, and I'm like, "But why me? Like, why do people want me to sell them a house or sell their house?" Like, even though I sold 8 last year, like, I've doubled every year since I started real estate, but at the same time, like, I'm not good enough. Like, in my head, I tell myself, she's like, "Megan, you have everything. You are smart. You have the whole package." And I'm like, "But I don't." And so I was just trying
Right.
to tell my husband this. I said, "She's trying to my confidence." It
Sure.
is so hard, and then you don't drown your feelings anymore because you're sober, so you don't have any way to drown your
Yeah, you
feelings. You
just
have
sit
to,
in
like
them.
yeah, and
You just
nobody
sit in
likes
those
sitting in
things,
their
like,
feelings.
yeah, it's tough. I also realized like I like to go to bed early.
Yeah,
Because
right?
like after a while, like nothing good is gonna happen in my head after 10 p.m. I promise you that much. So like, it's like, all right, you might as well just go to bed before the demons come out. And but it
Exactly.
is like the imposter syndrome is, a lot of times like I'm in these like entrepreneurial circles, and I go down to Eric Spofford's house when I can, and like that kind of thing, right? And it's pretty neat, but like I look around the room and I'm like, these guys are all more successful than me. But then they're like, yo, can you be on my podcast? Or like, can I get your opinion on this? And you're like, oh shit, like maybe I can bring something to the table.
Yeah,
And then you look at your resume, you're like, well, I actually have the numbers to prove it too.
yeah,
And but it's hard. Like when you have that imposter syndrome, it's hard to kind of break through that.
it really is. So, you are a successful entrepreneur who got sober and you're changing other people's lives. You're going to entrepreneurial things and still building yourself up, and
Yep.
other people are reaching out to you as well. Like, that has to be like, that probably wouldn't have been happening if you never got sober.
No, never. Who wants to be the guy that, you know what I mean? Like, who wants to be the guy that can't talk by 4 o'clock in the afternoon? You know, like no
Right.
one aspires to be that guy, right?
No.
And you know, like from the day that I got sober, like I sold the company for 7 figures. I eventually got a deal for that company, right? I've lost 80 pounds. I
80
started
pounds.
80 pounds, like, and not, and once again, like if you take Ozempic or whatever, like good for you, whatever it takes. Being healthy is being healthy. But 80 pounds naturally, just because like, lifestyle change.
I love that you
Um,
mentioned that. Sorry. I have my thoughts on that.
oh, is that right?
I just think, if you absolutely have to take it to lose weight and get healthier, cool, but nobody wants to put in the hard work to lose the weight and get healthy. They just want the cheap or not cheap way, they just want the cheap way out, I guess.
See,
Like,
the
they don't
the
wanna
problem
strive
is
for
we're
it.
not in that stage yet so like, what's coming, right? So all like 90% of those that didn't need to use it and used it instead of just learning the 10,000 steps, a gallon of water in the gym will help. Um, 90% of those people are just going to relapse back to their original weights when they're
Yep,
done with it.
yep.
Because you didn't work for it, right? Like
Just like sobriety.
right, when you work for something, when you pay something, that's why, like, when you get something for free, like, you don't use it. It's
Yep,
garbage, right? It's a giveaway. It's a thing. If you pay for something, you hold on to it forever, right?
yep,
Or as long as you can. So when you pay with blood, sweat, and tears, like, you hold on to it. You don't want to let
yep,
that go. When you don't, when it was just easy, then you'll let it slip. And
mhm,
it's like anything. That's weight loss, sobriety, marriage. Like it's, hard work produces results. There is no replacement for it. There isn't. Now, once again, for both of us, I'll just say the disclaimer. If you need to do anything that's easy, medication wise, like we got your back. No hate.
right.
No, you know what I mean? Like do it because
It's
it's, being thinner
it's
and healthier is
supplementing.
better.
Yeah, I think it's supplementing your goals. It's not a cure all. It's like when I was doing first form, I would listen to a lot of the trainings, and it was like, these supplements aren't here to change you. They're here to supplement you.
Right.
Like, that's what it all is. Like, the alcohol, the pills to help you quit drinking, that's a supplement to help you quit drinking. You have to do the hard work outside of it, just like Ozempic or other weight loss tools. Like, you have to do the work outside
Yeah.
of it as well.
Yeah. 100%.
Train your
Absolutely.
brain.
Yeah, like, and that's part of it, right? Like your brain is like can also like fire off and be like, "Yo, we worked way too hard for you to be doing this."
Yeah,
Like we worked way too hard, so you better put that cookie down. Like you
exactly.
better recognize like you were outside in the cold 75 hard with the I had ski goggles on.
Oh,
Like walking in the snow, just Andy blasting, just fighting
right.
through it, Like don't forget
Yeah,
those days,
no,
like those days that's what made you. So, you know.
exactly.
So yeah, so
I know we have
I like go ahead.
sorry, I know we have to wrap up, soon, but I just wanted to touch base on how you got past those urges and cravings in the beginning, because a lot of people, I feel like, are fighting trying to find a way out of those urges and cravings.
Yeah, you got to keep yourself busy, right? Like,
Right.
and that
That's the schedule.
that's my key, right? You got to keep yourself busy. If you're urging and craving, that's fine. It's natural. It's gonna happen, right? Like it's still it doesn't really happen a ton lately, thank God. But like it's gonna happen, right? But like you got to keep yourself busy. You have to build a tool set, is what I call, right? Like so
Yes.
you have to know, like if I go out anywhere, I bring drinks. I don't care where it is. Like I got a bag, I got a jacket, I got something. Like I'm bringing seltzer. I drink a lot of liquid death because it looks like you're drinking a tall boy. And you know what I mean? Like, and people don't bust chops about that too much, right? I had a guy at a party last 6 months ago take it out of my hand and he's like, "Can I try that?" I'm like, "Yeah." And he swings it. He's like, "Oh man." He's like, "No, I'll stick with the White Claws," And I'm like, "Oh, no doubt, man." I was like, it could be a good alternative. He's like, "What's the percentage on that?" And I'm like, "It's water, dude." You know, Like, it's water. Like he's like, "What do you mean?" I'm like, "It's just water. It's canned water. That's all it is."
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
But like you got to stay busy and you have to you have a toolkit. So you have to bring your own drinks, right? Have an exit no matter where you are, even if it's your own house. Like have
Yeah.
a plan to escape because like if you feel trapped, like you might say, you know what, like I'll have one just to feel better or feel, less of this uncomfortability that I feel right now. So have an exit plan. Like don't get trapped. Like I got to dip. And you have to build up this level of self-confidence, I think, that you're like, I am not going to allow myself to slip. I don't care if it hurts feelings. I don't care if I have to
Mhm.
skip the party.
Saying
I
no.
I've never RSVP'd no to anything in my life compared to the last 2 years. Like something comes in, nope, no, no, nope.
Yeah.
Like unless it's something I can drive to, it's like a communion at 1 p.m. at like a church. I'm just like, if I don't want to go, I'm not going to go, and I'm not going to
Yeah.
apologize for it. Not, I don't mean like fuck you, I'm not going to your party, but like, I'm not going to kowtow like, oh, I got something to do. Be like, dude, like I can't make it. My bad. And you got to be okay with it.
Yeah.
And that takes a little bit of time, I think, but it's like anything, it's practice, right? It's like the first time felt a little uncomfortable. The second time felt better. It's like I'm a hockey player, right? It's like ice skating. It's like, getting out in the ice. Like the more you do it, the better off you are. So the more no's you throw out there, it's addition by sobriety is in general, broken down. It's addition by subtraction. It's removing something from your life and getting tenfold back.
Yeah.
Removing alcohol, tenfold back. Removing toxic people, tenfold back. Removing yourself from toxic situations, tenfold back, right?
Yes.
Removing the anxiety and the hurt and the pain and all that stuff 10 times lighter, Like sobriety is removal. It's just addition by subtraction.
It really is. I love that. That's so good. I haven't had that on here yet, so thank you for
Good.
that.
Of course.
Um, I could sit here and talk to you. Maybe we'll have to do a follow-up podcast because, like, there's
Let's
so
do
much.
it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Yeah,
Let's run this thing back.
yeah. And so, can you tell me your Instagram, and then I'll also put it in the.
Yeah, that's the easiest way to find me is so my name is John Buckley. So J Buck official at J Buck official is my Instagram handle. So go over there. Like I said, fire off a DM. I answer them. I love hearing from everybody. I hope it helps. I truly do. I pray it helps. And at the end of the day, you can do it. I know you can do it. Internally you can do it. It is doable. And I hate saying this cliche, but if I can do it, you can do it.
Exactly.
It's the truth because I was in the darkest place that dark, dark, crying to myself daily. Like why am I doing this? And then walking to the bar anyway. Like just sad. So
And you're out of
uh,
it, and so congrats on almost 2 years.
thank you, very much appreciated, and very much success to you and your podcast and your real estate game and all that you bring to the table.
Yeah, well, working on it.
No doubt, it's a labor of love at this point.